my God.
She didn't plot to kill him.
I don't know.
Locked in an old prison, could we cope for 24 hours?
Right, I know that they exist now.
Hello and welcome to Most Haunted. We're in Derby, a city which calls itself the ghost capital of England. Now, Derby is world famous for its ghost walks, and over 95,000 people have been on them in 8 years. So where better to spend 24 hours than in the old Derby prison? Scenes of total incarceration and brutal executions.
In the basement, underneath buildings hidden below the pavements, Derby Jail still exists, although now it's used as a tourist attraction. Since 1756, it has housed hundreds of prisoners. Many of them died here and still refuse to leave.
So, is the old Derby prison haunted, or is it just a tourist attraction to pull in the crowds? That's what the Most Haunted team want to find out.
There were over 200 hanging offences in England. You could be hanged for stealing a sheep, stealing a horse, cutting down trees, breaking down riverbanks, impersonating a Chelsea pensioner, setting fire to haystacks, appearing on the street with a sooty face, poaching, burglary, shop breaking. 200 hanging offences.
Execution was commonplace here, and many of the convicts were hanged right outside the prison. And I wonder whether any of the spirits are still hanging around. Now, of course, I am not going to spend the whole night in this prison on my own. You must be joking. I'll be too scared for that. So, of course, we've got the Most Haunted team. We've got Mark on Steadicam, Angle behind, and, of course, we've got the lovely Martin and the rest of the crew. Say hi. Hi. Where's Marcel? You always get really scared.
There's a really funny atmosphere in there. It's quite oppressive, so I'm not looking forward to tonight, really.
Go on, give us a smile.
That should scare people.
Now, most people, if they encounter anything paranormal, immediately jump to the conclusion that it's a ghost. Now, Jason Carr, parapsychologist, you don't do that.
I don't do that. I don't believe in ghosts.
At all?
Well, most people, when they think they've seen a ghost or had some kind of unusual occurrence, automatically will assume that it is paranormal without looking into it in any depth at all. We don't do that. We look for scientific evidence, we look for logical explanations, looking at it in a logical and an analytical way. People don't do that. They're too ready to accept the unknown.
A bit like myself.
A bit like you.
And Marcel as well.
And a few more people here as
Absolutely.
well.
Now, here at the prison, what sort of strange occurrences have happened in the past here?
Well, being a prison, it's associated with lots of unpleasant and negative feelings anyway. A lot of people obviously have spent a lot of time here in unpleasant situations and conditions waiting to die. So you're going to get that feeling when you go in anyway. You don't need to be psychic or in tune to get that. But people have seen ghosts here, smoky shapes, they've had things moving, they've had actually a ghost stood just where we are sat here in the garden, a man in a long leather sort of jerkin type of affair. There isn't any particular historical personalities that can be identified haunting here. It's really a selection of different characters.
And what about, I know there's a connection, because isn't today supposed to be a pagan holiday?
It is, yeah. Today is Imbolc, or Oimelc, and that is one of the 8 pagan festivals throughout the year. It's a Celtic festival, really, and it symbolises the change from winter into spring. So it's about rebirth, it's about happiness, growth, crocuses, rabbits, all the nice things coming back in from the winter. And Celtic pagan festivals are linked to supernatural and unusual phenomena, and there is statistically more unusual things happening around pagan festivals, so it might be interesting that we're here on a particularly special day. We might get more happening.
Is it true to say that when you're actually in an environment like this, that the energy can actually build up gradually, or not at all?
If you believe the energy is there at all, then the theories state that yes, when there's lots of people around, more things happen when the energy is built up. Now, we know from studies that when people are in a group having fun or working or doing anything really, just being active, that more things happen. If you sit around waiting, we've said this before, waiting for the ghost to appear, nothing happens. So the energy, if you believe that, is probably building as we speak.
What's this thing called ectoplasm?
Ectoplasm, yeah. Well, ectoplasm is, it derives actually from a Greek word, or 2 words, ektos, ectoplasm plasma, which literally means exteriorized substance. And when you see photographs of wispy, ghost-like images, that is supposed to be ectoplasm. But if you go back to spiritualist days when mediums in the Victorian era used to give seances, they supposedly would produce, perhaps I'm saying the wrong thing here, they used to produce ectoplasm from their bodies, and the ectoplasm would come out and form into the shape of a ghost. That's what it's supposed to be. There's no scientific evidence for it.
Has it happened here?
It's supposed to happen in every haunted house, so we might get some tonight, you never know.
Now, you're going to be doing some experiments here tonight. What
We
sort
are.
of things are we going to be doing?
Well, I'm going to use a trigger object across. Now, this is particularly relevant here because this site actually has links with a nunnery, and some of the reported unusual occurrences are associated with nuns or monks chanting. So that's to try and entice the ghosts out, if you like. But more interesting than those here, I particularly want to try a new experiment, which is known as automatic writing. Now, in spiritualist history, this is where a medium goes into a trance state and blindfold, they write on a piece of paper, and allegedly the information that is written comes from a ghost. Now, you don't have to be psychic or mediumistic to try this, and I'd like yourself and perhaps a couple of members of the crew to do this in each of the cells, separate.
Are we all happy to do that? Nobody's putting their hand up.
Well, if we can do it, it'd be interesting, I think, to look at the different things that come out and see if they correspond to anything historical. So I think that will be very interesting and very relevant here because we can put you separate.
Now, of course, our team would not be complete without our spirit medium, Derek Okora, and he is on his way as we speak.
You stood on the back of a cart. Big, thick rope put around your neck. The horse was drawn away, and you were left literally swinging in the breeze. It could take you anything up to a quarter of an hour to die of slow strangulation, kicking, writhing, choking, vomiting. And then he used to cut the rope up into small lengths and sell it to the crowd. Money for old rope. After the execution, murderers were also sentenced to be either dissected publicly by doctors or gibbeted, which is hung up in a metal cage. Your body was tarred and you were hung near the scene of the crime and left to rot, and for the crows to pick at your eyes and your bones to bleach. And of course, you see, in those days, as today, we all crave a decent burial, and people were terrified of not having this burial and their body not being whole. So of course they believed that on the Day of Judgment, if their body wasn't whole and their soul wasn't, and they'd rot in hell forever. Some people, of course, tried to take their own lives. And here, in this building, two brothers, burglars, the Jones brothers, actually committed suicide inside one of these cells the night before their execution. And this was the terrible, terrible torment of these poor, unfortunate people that occupied these cells here.
The prison was designed to hold 21 convicts. That's one person per cell. Can you imagine what it must have felt like when they put 6 people in there for 23 hours a day? Picture this. You're all sitting quietly in this room when all of a sudden the face of a dead person superimposes itself onto the person sitting right next to you. How terrifying that would be. Well, that is what has been reported in this very room. All of the cells run off this main passageway where ghostly figures are often seen. Also, noises are heard here, clicking, scraping, dragging, and bolts being closed across doors. Prisoners were split into cells. Felons, debtors and women. But it's in this particular cell that a lot of paranormal activity has been reported. Strange, shapeless mists, streaks of light, and the noise of something turning over on the straw bed.
I've been doing ghost walks around the city of Derby for the last 9 years. And people used to say, will we see a ghost? And I used to say, no, not on a commercial ghost walk, until I took this building over. And the number of people that have had for want of a better word, experience as ghostly ones in here, including